More often than not, we're going to need to go in and edit and change the values that we've keyframed into our animation. Animation is an art form of many passes. It's iterative. We key it, we look at the timing of how all these keyframes are creating the illusion of the animation. Then more often than not, we're going to have to go in and make some changes. Well, luckily for us, making these interactive changes to the values contained in our keyframes is really easy. If you look at the example that we've been working on over the last little bit, here's the animation that I've crafted. It just goes from the left to the right, and then it goes up. Pretty straightforward. However, I need to make some changes. I don't want my animation to start way off over here. Maybe I want my animation to begin a little bit more in the center of the viewport. That way my camera is composed quite wonderfully. Well, so we need to edit the keyframes. We don't need to delete them and start over. The cool thing about working with keyframes is that they are just containers of data. We don't need to delete all the data in order for us to continue to work with them or to make a change. We just need to change and edit the current container, and it's really easy to do so. The first thing that we need to do is that we need to navigate to the keyframe that we want to change. Now, be mindful of where your playhead is, because there's some really great keyboard shortcuts that will help you get some frame level accuracy on the editing of specific keyframes. I have my current time indicator, my playhead, on frame 13, and I need to move it back to frame 1. I could go in and just move it like that. That works too. But in very large timelines and in animations that are very complex, sometimes that's impossible to do. There's a great keyboard shortcut that I want to introduce you to, and it's simply the up and down arrow on your keyboard. Check it out. If you hit the up and down arrow, it's going to move your playhead to the next or previous keyframe, depending on where you are. I'm going to zoom out some so you guys can see what's going on. So if I hit the up arrow, watch where my playhead goes. Bloop. Goes automatically to frame 60 because that's the next keyframe inside of my timeline. If I was to hit the down arrow, watch where my playhead goes. Boop, back to frame 1. So an easy way to navigate your timeline to work to the keyframe that you want to change. Okay. So I want to change the value of the keyframe. It's really easy to do that. I want to make sure that I've put my playhead on the keyframe that I want to work with. Shoot, you know what's even better? You can even go in and select all the values if you'd like, or select the channels. The more information that you give it, the better. At the very least, you just got to have your playhead on the frame where the keyhead or the keyframe is placed. Now, step number 2, to make a change to the keyframe, I'm not moving my object, I'm moving my 3D viewport here, is that we're going to make the change itself. So step 1 when editing keyframe is to move the playhead to the keyframe. Step 2 is to make the actual change itself. And for this one, I want it to be a little bit more, maybe I want it to start somewhere right around in here. Now, making the change in the viewport doesn't actually change the keyframe itself. And I want to bring your attention back to the color coding of the channels in the transform area, in our properties panels, excuse me. See how we have 2 that are yellow and 1 that's now this lovely shade of orange? The 2 that are yellow are Blender is communicating to us that these 2 channels have keyframe information on it, but the orange one, the computer's recognizing that there is new values in here that's not reflected in the keyframes. Think of these like little eggs, right? We've placed some data on the egg and it saved all that data inside of this egg. Well, we've made a change to the egg, but we haven't saved any of that stuff. We need to rekey all of this information. We need to save this new value back into the keyframe. It's pretty straightforward to do that. There's a couple simple ways we can do that. Here's the easiest way. Just click on the diamond to delete the keyframe and click on it again to add a keyframe back in. Notice that that channel has now gone back. I'm going to hit the undo key a couple times. Here's another way you can do it. Put your cursor over here, hit the I key, and manually rekey all 3 of these channels simultaneously. We're not auto keying yet. More on that in the future. But anytime that we want to make a change to an object or an object's keyframe, we have to physically go in and manually key that information in. We got to make a change. See how it's orange again? And then hit the I key to key it, okay? You can also do the exact same thing inside of our 3D viewport. Remember, you can hit the I key over here. Click on location, boom. And now we've keyed in, rekeyed on top of that, on top of the values that are already there. We don't got to delete the keyframes. We just got to rekey it, key on top to preserve the change that we've edited. Now my animation is starting from kind of screen left, screen right. I'm looking at the composition viewer here, and maybe I want to have on this one, I want my coin to end maybe on like screen right. So I want to make another change over here. I've made a change. I can see over here the computer is recognizing and understanding that I've made a change, but it hasn't been preserved or saved in a keyframe because this channel box is orange. Hit the I key to save in that new information, and we're off to the races. Pretty cool, huh? Editing keyframes is really easy inside of Blender. Just be disciplined on it and understand that just because you've moved it doesn't mean you've saved that movement, that change into a keyframe. Anytime you want to make a change, gotta rekey it. If you stay disciplined, editing the current keyframes in your timeline is gonna be really easy.